Good day, everyone. So, today we will learn about the curriculum evaluation through learning assessment. And your reporters for today are Vincent Benaventura, Janenver Garcia, Cristel Monique Hagnaan, and Janine Jimenea. So, our learning outcomes for today's lesson: at the end of this module, you are expected to explain how a curriculum can be evaluated through the assessment of learning outcomes. Identify the levels of learning outcomes vis-a-vis levels of assessment. Match the levels of learning outcomes with the appropriate assessment tools, and interpret the value of assessment in terms of grades assigned. So now let's proceed to the Philippine Qualification Framework. So Philippine Qualification Framework, or PQF, is a reference system of national standard of what qualifications one has earned by education and training in the Philippines. It specifies what an individual has learned in and out of formal schooling, lifelong learning based on qualification, levels of degree of competencies of knowledge, skills, applications, values, and degree of independence. So, when we say Philippine Qualification Framework, it is actually a national policy that describes the level of educational qualification of a person, and it sets the standard for qualification outcomes in every profession. So as we can see, the level 1 to 4, which is the NC 1 to 4, can be acquired in TESDA, in which you will undergo training to obtain these certificates, and will be followed by a diploma in level 5. And the level 6 to 8 were covered by the Commission on Higher Education, or the CHED. So now let's proceed to the levels of competency descriptor required for each level for basic and higher education level. So the PQF, or Philippine Qualification Framework, has 3 domains. So these domains help us to identify what can we do or what need to be achieved at that level. So the first domain is the knowledge, skills, values. So in basic education, or grade 12, an individual should possess functional knowledge across range of learning areas and technical skills in chosen career tracks, with advanced competencies in communication, scientific, critical and creative thinking, and use of technologies. And number 2, understanding of right and wrong, one's history and cultural heritage, deep respect of self and others. So in basic education, it is expected that an individual learn the what we call values and functional knowledge, which are the communication skills, creative thinking and critical thinking, and etc., in which we can apply across different learning areas. And in baccalaureate degree, you should possess broad and coherent knowledge in the field of discipline or profession. So meaning you have a deeper understanding in your degree or your chosen career. And in the master's degree, you should possess the broad and deep knowledge in the field of discipline or profession. So you need to possess more compared to what you have achieved in baccalaureate degree. And in doctoral and postdoctoral degree, you generate new knowledge, skills with established values in the discipline or profession. So in doctoral and postdoctoral degree, you're more skilled and more competent in your field of discipline or profession. And the second domain is application. So in basic education, you apply functional knowledge, technical skills and values in academic and real-life situations through sound reasoning, informed decision-making, and judicious use of resources. And in baccalaureate degree, you apply knowledge, skills, and values in the professional work. In master's degree, you apply deep knowledge, skills, and values in the professional work and research. And in doctoral and postdoctoral degree, you apply in professional work and research as a leader or initiator. And the last domain is degree of independence. So in basic education, you apply skills in the varied situations with minimal supervision. And in baccalaureate degree, you work independently, alone, or in teams. And in master's degree, you work independently. And in doctoral and postdoctoral degree, you highly independent in work, initiate, and lead.
Matching the competencies and outcomes with the PQF by doing learning assessment. So as we can see here, we have a chart, the learning levels, description of learning outcomes, and sample guide question. First, level 1, knowledge, factual knowledge, procedural knowledge, metacognition. In sample guide question, what do you want your students to know in terms of facts, conceptual, procedural, and multiple thinking? Example is part of the body is sky blue, how to dissect frog, describe a typhoon. In this question, the student, they use their common sense or based on what they see or what they observe. So next is level 2, processes, skills that the student use based on the fact and information for making meaning and understanding. In sample guide question, what do you want students to understand? Example, how do the elements of weather interact to produce climate change? It is connected to the level 1 sample guide question. In sample guide question level 1, it asks, uh, describe the typhoon. In this level 2, uh, how the elements of weather interact to produce climate change. So the level of knowledge become higher and the question become much harder, or they explain what they learn or what they see. The student based on the facts and information. Then the student make a meaning. How does it happen? Why this is happen? Next is level 3, understanding, making meaning to big ideas and concept. The sample guide question is same to level 2 because in level 2, process first. In level 3 is understanding, how they understand the information that they got or the facts that they got. Last is level 4, product or performance. Product, material, or performance, oral, visual, written, or projects are evidences of learning. So that in sample guide question, does your portfolio display evidence to show learning outcomes achieved? Can you create a one-act play to show the principles of dramatization? What research paper can you undergo to report on the conservation of indigenous plants? In this sample guide questions, you will see if your learning outcomes is effective or work to your students based on their works. If they learn, you will base to their works individual to know if they understand your learning outcome. Assessment tools for each level of learning outcomes, knowledge, process, and understanding, or in short, KUP learning outcomes. Knowledge, understanding, and process are learning outcomes, and on the different levels can be assessed in many ways with the use of appropriate tools. These three types of learning outcomes assigned with different assessment or tests that will we use. Also, the appropriate tools that based on the level of this KUP. Later, I will discuss the performance assessment tool.
Knowledge, process, and understanding are learning outcomes that can be assessed in different levels. There are types of tests to measure knowledge, process, and understanding. Number one is objective test. Objective test requires only one correct answer. The next is pencil and paper type of test. Of course, with the pencil and paper type of test, it is written in the paper and it requires pen to write. The next is simply recall. Simply recall, it measures knowledge. For example, is identification, fill in the blanks, and enumeration. The third is alternative response test. This alternative response test is given two options or two choices. It can be a question or a statement. For example, is true or false and yes or no. The next is multiple choice. We are all familiar with multiple choices. For others, it is easy for them, but for others, it is hard because it confuses them. For each item, there are 3 to 5 choices to have multiple choice. The other choices are called distractors. The next one is matching type of test. Matching type of test, it is similar to response test because it can be a question or a statement. It can be answered by two options, just like true or false or yes or no. The next is subjective test. This type of test that can be used in essay type of test because insights, opinions, and others can be given through essay. The last is essay. This type of test allows students to have freedom of response. Assessment tools to measure authentic learning, performance, and product, and also known as KPUP. Level 4 of these learning outcomes in KPUP can be assessed through performance and product. These learning outcomes can best do through the use of authentic evaluation. When we say authentic evaluation, it is a test in real life tasks, performance, and actual product. So when we say authentic, we always think about it is happening in real life or it is real. The most common of the authentic assessment are the performance assessment because performance assessment we do that in real life situation, and the use of portfolio because we experience that in real life and we learn that in real life and our everyday life.
Let's proceed to performance assessment tools. First is the checklist. It is commonly used for markers to check the attendance, to mark who is absent and present, the active and inactive students. Okay, they put check to the present or active student, and X for inactive or absent students. Next is rating scale. Is a tool that uses a scale in a number line as a basis to estimate the numerical value of performance or a product. Okay? In this tool, we easily see if their answers are the same or even their thoughts. We easily count is if how many students answered the different choices to determine who answered correct, how many students answered correctly. Last is rubrics for portfolio. As we can see in the chart, we can see if how's good or not really good the performance or output of the students. It is also like a rules or guide how you define the student performance if they uh, got the standard of learning. You will base on rubric.
So now, let's proceed to the level of assessment for the levels of learning outcomes. Levels of assessment describe levels of learning outcomes, which are first, the knowledge, second, the process or skills, third, the understanding, and fourth, products or performance. So the levels of learning outcomes are also used to describe the levels of assessment. Through the Depth and Order 73 series of 2012, Levels of learning outcomes are also the levels of assessment. So, in other words, the levels of assessment follow also the levels of thinking skills from lower level to higher level. So, in this table, we can see from lower level to higher level, we can see the different levels of learning outcomes or assessment. And on the second column, we can see what to test or to assess. On the third, we can also see there the type of assessment for each level of learning outcomes, and on the fourth column, the percentage value of assessment. So take a few seconds to examine this table. Placing value to assessment results from KPUP, DepEd Order number 73 of 2011 to written work, performance task, and quarterly exam, or the WW/PT/QE, DepEd Order number 8 series of 2013. While the KPUP is still utilized in the grading system, however, it has been slightly modified by WW/PT/QE. So a summative assessment is composed of written work, or the WW, performance task, or the PT, and quarterly assessment, or the QA. So this will be explained in the table. So the components are the written work, performance task, and quarterly assessment. It has its own purposes and when it should be given. Grades at the end of the school year and how these are computed. First, in the kindergarten, we use checklists, anecdotal records, and portfolios instead of numerical grades, which are based on the kindergarten curriculum guide. From grade 1 to 10, or the junior high, number 1, the average of the quarter grades produces the end of the year grade. Second, the general average is computed by dividing the sum of all final grades by the total numbers of learning areas. Each learning area has equal weight. As you can see on the table, the subjects language, AP, and ESP have different weight as compared to science and math. In addition, the subject MAPE, EPP, and TLE also have different weight on the different components as compared to the other academic subjects. Take a few seconds to examine the table and how each of the components vary in weight. So for grade 11 and 12 or the senior high, the following guidelines should be followed. First, the average of the quarterly grade produces the semester grade. Second, the general average is computed by dividing the sum of all semestral final grades by the total number of learning areas. Third, the senior high school grading components. As we can see on the table, all the percentage of all the strands, subjects, and other activities are stated very clearly. We need to take note also that written work may include items and level 1, which is knowledge, and level 3, understanding in the KPUP. Performance task may also include items and level 2, which is the process or skills, and level 4, which is the product or performance of the KPUP. The quarterly assessment may include level 1 to 4. Let's proceed to the last, which is the reporting summative grades by quarter or semester or end of the year. So interpretation of the numerical values for all subject areas is based on the minimum initial grade of 60, transmuted into an equivalent of 75 in their report card. So the numerical grades are described in the different levels of proficiency in the different components or the different competencies set on the subject areas. The interval scale of computed for level learning outcomes are given level of proficiency descriptions. So this interpretation is used for all learning areas or subjects in basic education. So the table on screen shows the different levels of proficiency description and corresponding grading scale based on the transmuted values. So in here, we can see that the students who will get a grade of 74 and below belong to the beginning level. Those who will get 75 to 79 are described as developing. Those who will get 80 to 84 are categorized as those who are approaching proficiency. And students who will get 85 to 89 are considered proficient. while those who will get a rating of 90 and above are considered advanced. So, that will be all. Thank you.